Governor DeSantis extends the bogus executive order on immigration that has given him the authority to bill with your public money and no oversight or due process. Yeah, there is no oversight to such an extent that there are questions about who is even running this facility. We don't know who's really accountable for that facility, whether it's the state of Florida or the federal government.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup.
This is Ashley with Status Coup.
On the ground.
In Philadelphia.
Flint, Michigan. East Palestine, Ohio. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground,
covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hey, it's Ashley Bishop with Status Coup. I have more updates on Alligator Alcatraz, and what we are hearing about conditions inside the facility continue to be horrific. Additionally, DeSantis extended the executive order on immigration that he's using to justify this facility that nobody knows who is running. Immigration lawyers are being told detainees are not in custody of ICE. And the mayor of Orange County, Florida, is refusing to cooperate with the state's push to bring more immigrants to this facility that, again, apparently no one is accepting responsibility for. So first, on the conditions inside the facility, this is from Representative Anna Eskamani. Detainees at the Everglades Immigrant Detention Camp are telling us that their arrival dates are being adjusted since many have already been there for more than 14 days. Apparently, when their wristbands are being scanned, arrival dates have been adjusted. Again, detainees are not supposed to be at this facility for more than 14 days. It is supposed to be temporary. So Representative Eskamani is saying that she's hearing that detainees' arrival dates are being adjusted to make it seem like they haven't been there for as long as they have. She also says in another tweet, in addition, detainees, many who have no criminal background or any deportation orders, are being asked daily to sign papers to self-deport. So the Fed and state are detaining people with no due process and then create a hostile, caged environment that pressures them to self-deport. And her tweet goes on, also hearing that phones keep getting shut off several hours a day. And now they have a phone curfew starting at 10 p.m., only being allowed 1 cup of water when eating. People are becoming dehydrated. Access to shampoo, deodorant, and toothpaste is also more difficult. She goes on to say, would love to verify all of this with the state, but the best way to verify would be for us to have unfettered access at any time so we could check for ourselves. This is all horrific. Immigrants with no criminal charges and no final deportation orders, despite DeSantis insisting that they do, including a Mexican tourist and a 15-year-old who obviously have no final deportation orders, have little to no access to the outside world. They're getting between 1 and 3 cups of water per day in the Florida heat, because we have been told that they we're being told they're eating like once a day. They're finding it increasingly difficult to get basic hygiene products like shampoo and toothpaste. They're also being asked to self-deport without any due process while being locked up in crowded cages under these inhumane conditions. It is no wonder that our representatives, with few notable exceptions, don't care about Gaza. Look what's happening right here under their orchestration. And DeSantis is working to keep people who might be able to verify what's happening in there out, just like Netanyahu has been trying to prevent working journalists from working in Gaza by blocking their access or just killing them. Governor DeSantis extended the executive order declaring an immigration emergency in Florida, which is nowhere near the border. The executive order should have expired today, but was renewed yesterday. So one last tweet from Representative Anna Eskamani. Governor DeSantis extends the bogus executive order on immigration that has given him the authority to build the $450 million plus Everglades Immigrant Detention Camp with your public money and no oversight or due process. Yeah. There is no oversight to such an extent that there are questions about who is even running this facility. This is from the Orlando Sentinel yesterday, and really great reporting from them. Who's in charge at Alligator Alcatraz? We've gotten a lot of runaround. Immigration attorneys and environmental activists, even the Mexican government and the Archdiocese of Miami have all asked who's in charge at Alligator Alcatraz. They say they can't get a straight answer. We've gotten a lot of runaround, Archbishop Thomas Wensky told the Miami Herald after trying unsuccessfully to provide religious services for detainees. We don't know who's really accountable for that facility, whether it's the state of Florida or the federal government. Now, nearly a month since Florida opened the country's newest, most novel immigrant detention center, the question of whether the state or federal government has jurisdiction over this facility, and especially its detainees, continues to puzzle legal experts, tangle up lawsuits, and complicate due process for the people held there. Attorneys say they have been repeatedly told that their clients at Alligator Alcatraz are not in the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Even though immigration enforcement is historically the realm of the federal government, environmental activists suing in federal court to shut down the facility have been told the Trump administration is barely involved. Lawmakers given a tour of the detention camp say they were told it's functioning under a federal program that gives state and local officials the power to hold immigrants for the federal government, even though the state entity in charge has no such agreement. What is going on in this facility? If detainees aren't in custody of ICE, who are they actually in custody of? So the piece goes on, mixed messages. Federal and state officials have delivered mixed messages about who's in charge of what. Department of Homeland Security officials have attempted to distance themselves from the facility as a whole in court filings and defers most questions about Alligator Alcatraz to the state. But Governor Ron DeSantis has consistently evoked the Trump administration's oversight of immigration detainees, saying Friday during a news conference at the facility that it is the federal government taking detainees to and from the site. I know DHS has a whole process of how they do it, DeSantis said, telling reporters that the Department of Homeland Security is now running flights to and from the detention center. Once they get on that plane, DHS handles them and processes them and deports them accordingly. A high-ranking Trump administration immigration official, however, said in response to a federal lawsuit by environmental groups challenging the facility's operations that it's the state, not ICE, that decides which detainees end up at Alligator Alcatraz. The ultimate decision of who to detain at Alligator Alcatraz, wrote Thomas P. Giles, acting deputy associate director of enforcement and removal operations for the Trump administration, belongs to Florida. The Department of Homeland Security has said that the state is managing the facility and that immigrants arrested under a program granting local law enforcement immigration powers are to be detained at the site. The agency did not answer questions about whether it has any kind of agreement with the state to manage the detention center or whether detainees held there fall under federal jurisdiction. The Florida Division of Emergency Management did not respond to questions. It shouldn't be a mystery to either the state or federal government where the legal authority is for this place, said one of the attorneys representing the environmental groups who filed the lawsuit. What they're trying to do at the end of the day is pretend like this facility is not governed by federal law. No one wants to claim responsibility for being in charge of this facility. DeSantis in the state of Florida and Trump in the federal government are both pointing the finger at each other because no one wants to claim responsibility for it and potentially be held accountable for it or be subject to the legal responsibilities they might have in running it. The piece goes on to say, another representation from Giles that the site is operating under the 287G program, granting local and state agencies immigration enforcement powers typically reserved for the federal government, has also confused lawmakers and immigration experts. Scores of Florida law enforcement agencies have active 287 agreements, including the Florida National Guard, which is stationed guardsmen at the detention center, but the Florida Division of Emergency Management, which is tasked with running the site, is not one of them. U.S. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz said Florida Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie told her during a tour of the site that his agency does not have the direct 287G authority to run the facility. She and other Democratic lawmakers said officials clarified to them many times that ICE is calling the shots while they toured Alligator Alcatraz on July 12th. They, FDEM, are not designated to manage this facility on behalf of the federal government, said Wasserman Schultz. We are not able to get clarity on whose 287G authority this facility is being run. Jennifer Whitlock, senior policy counsel at the National Immigration Law Center, an advocacy organization for low-income immigrants, said she is baffled by how Alligator Alcatraz came to be if it's not being run by ICE. Whitlock said the state and federal government's statements that Alligator Alcatraz is authorized through the state's various 287G agreements sound inaccurate. A 287G agreement permits local and state officers to hold detainees in custody, but it does not allow for detention without ICE oversight, Whitlock said. Operating a state detention center rather than holding detainees in state prisons and county jails is stretching the 287 agreement between the bounds of what Congress intended, Whitlock said. In the federal statute allowing 287 agreements, it says that any officer, employee, or political subdivision of the state is acting under the color of federal authority. Also, anyone acting on behalf of a 287 agreement is supposed to be under supervision of the U.S. Attorney General, which would be Pam Bondi, who is very busy with other things right now, not paying any attention to this. I don't know if there's actually a plan in place for any sort of oversight, Whitlock said. The DeSantis and Trump administrations have been clear that Alligator Alcatraz is not a federal detention center, but have been less forthcoming about what it is under state and federal law. On the state side, officials have said that the facility is not a state correctional institution because it's managed by the Division of Emergency Management, not the Department of Corrections. If that is the case, it's not legally subject to the state standards for jails and prisons, Whitlock said. A spokeswoman for Florida's Division of Emergency Management did not answer questions about which laws regulate the operations and oversight of Alligator Alcatraz. It would seem that the lack of oversight is the plan here. Florida's own emergency management agency, which operates the facility, does not have the federal 287G authority required to hold immigrants, and it's apparently not being run by ICE. DeSantis is also claiming that the center is not a prison because it's not run by the Department of Corrections, meaning it is also not subject to jail standards. It's also not a federal immigration detention center since DHS isn't funding or overseeing it. This is crazy. The absolute lawlessness and corruption in pursuit of callous inhumanity is, again, crazy. Jerry Demings, the mayor of Orange County in Florida, is refusing to cooperate with the state's push to bring immigrants to Alligator Alcatraz, which again is operating under apparently no laws. Demings has refused, as of now anyway, to sign an addendum to allow county corrections officers to transport ICE detainees to Alligator Alcatraz more than 4 hours away from the Orange County Jail or other sites outside of the county. So this is from Florida Politics. Jerry Demings, I'm not going to be bullied by the state attorney general on immigration. The state attorney general publicly posted a letter to Demings and the Orange County Commission threatening to remove them from office if they refused to transport undocumented immigrants to an ICE-approved facility or not, when requested by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. He accused Orange County of having a sanctuary policy. And wrote that the county's actions are particularly puzzling because illegal aliens represent an obvious danger to the county. These people are all crooks, and they're the only real danger to Orange County and everywhere else in the country. Again, the absolute lack of accountability and finger pointing over who runs the facility, who will accept the blame for the horrors that those imprisoned in Alligator Alcatraz are facing is astounding. We will continue to stay on this story. We are still planning on heading back to Alligator Alcatraz. You can make that possible by joining us as a member at statuscoup.com/join. Thanks. I will see you guys soon.